everyone, this is Jason, and we are at From Heroes to Icons. This is our second episode of Why We Love Comics, and we are talking today, as you can see, about Image Comics. And most people that have collected comic books for the past 20 some odd years know all about Image Comics and how these young upstarts from Marvel Comics decided that if they couldn't do things their way at Marvel, then one way or another, they were going to do it. And spearheaded by Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, Jim Valentino, Eric Larson, Todd McFarlane, and Mark Silvestri decided to stake a claim at comic book ownership and the rights to their own creative characters. And you can see now, all these years later, just how far they've come. As we all know, the majority of people that collect comic books don't collect the books just for the stories, just for, oh, I need something to read. But comic books, the medium itself, is driven very much by the artwork. And these artists here and those that follow them, let it be known that it is the artwork, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that really drives the sales of many, many comic books. Now we know, just from these books that I have up here, Eric Larson was at the time doing The Amazing Spider-Man. Todd McFarlane was on his own Spider-Man book. Rob Liefeld had created X-Force. Jim Lee went from Uncanny X-Men to X-Men. Mark Silvestri had a run on Wolverine. And then Uncanny X-Men, and Jim Valentino was working on the Guardians of the Galaxy at the time. And all of those books, I collected all of those books. I have those runs. And when they jumped ship, I jumped ship right with them. I was ecstatic. And, love them or hate them, these books paved the way for all the independent books that we are collecting now, all these hot books going to Netflix, or everything being picked up that aren't under the Marvel or DC banner. We have to thank, most in part, from these creators. And aside from WildC.A.T.S, what was created by Jim Lee, Youngblood, created by Rob Liefeld, Eric Larson created The Savage Dragon, and everybody knows that Todd McFarlane created Spawn. And Jim Valentino created Shadowhawk, and Mark Silvestri brought his own form of mutants to Image Comics, and he created Cyberforce. And these guys, they became like rock stars in a fashion in the comic book world, and it was just awesome to have these books. Some people will be like, oh, I don't like the story, this and that and that, but I mean, even now, all of this time later, you can see how well these books stand up. And not only that, the fact that they had young men and women come behind them and either create their own characters or help create more characters that came after them. These initial artists and writers were, like the first string of Image Comics. And then, nothing's going to stop Rob Liefeld. He was going to have 1 million books and 1 million different creators come out behind him. And I believe it was Brian Murphy that he got with, and they started doing the Supreme book, which was superbly done. I can't even begin to say how much I like these books. And they were $2. They had, a lot of them had the fancy covers and stuff after the first run of all these titles, and some of them started back from #1. WildC.A.T.S, I know, continued after number 4, they discontinued their numbering, and Spawn, as McFarlane is the workhorse of them all, he never stopped. He had Mike Grill's Shaman Tears, which is an Indian type book. It's pretty fire. I don't know if you guys can see that, but yeah, the Red Bird. Very nice. That book was dope. And a friend of Jim Lee, Wills Patachio, who also worked on X-Men, and then currently, I believe when everybody else left, he was on X Factor. He created Wetworks, which was really, really different. It was like a covert ops team that got pretty much infected by these golden symbiotes. It was really dope. And each person, after they got the symbiote, developed a different superhuman ability. That was really cool. Didn't last too long, but, well, he didn't last too long on a book, but he kept it going. I think Dave Johnson picked up the artwork after that. And who else can forget the dude that for many of us in the early 90s made the Incredible Hulk super hot. Dale Keown had his own Incredible Hulk, which they tried to sue him for but could not because he has no nose. And he created the Pit, which we know his story, up and down, up and down. Still a great book all in all. I myself, I'm not going to complain because I got all of them. Now they had a couple of other people. We had WildC.A.T.S, which just really started all of the crazy stuff with the covers and all of this. And this was like one of the first, I mean, besides Spawn, one of the really ultra-violent comic books from Image. It was really cool. I think the only ones that really super violent like that was the Savage Dragon and Spawn. And Mark Silvestri had his crew. And I'm not going to show all the books, but I'm going to show one. And he's totally independent now. He has his own book. But this book here, I believe, may have been his first comic book work. I'm not even sure. But this is some of the best stuff that he had from Image. Joe Benitez, and this is Weapon Zero. And his art style was phenomenal. And he's still sick. I think he's doing Lady Mechanica is his book now. And that was just really good stuff. And Jim Lee had a slew of things that he created that came out. He also had Union, which was penciled originally by, the first limited series was done by Mark Texeira, and the ongoing series was started by one of his proteges, Ryan Benjamin. And he created Stormwatch, which I guess was like the government version of the Avengers or something. But every member was from a different country. And that was pretty cool. And he also had Michael Cray, which those who are buying the Wildstorm book know of. And that is Death Blow. Very hard to see, but his face is embedded in there. Great book. And a very slept on book, but a book that Jim Lee himself did the entire series. And I just love it, I guess, because it reminds me of some of the characters from the Wheel of Time. And that was Divine Right. And that was his own little maxi series there that crossed over into the different Wildstorm books and all of that. And that was really awesome. And of course, we can never forget one of the most popular pin-up cover artists of our generation. Yes, he had his start also at Image Comics, and that is the infamous J. Scott Campbell with Gen 13. And to me, that was really dope. Jim Lee had some really awesome young artists coming up behind him, and my favorite, of course, co-created by Brett Booth, and he had his debut in Stormwatch, and he's pretty much, besides the Grifter, he's my favorite character from Jim Lee's Wildstorm, and that is Backlash. That book was pure fire. And because of all of these cool books and these guys breaking away and doing their own things, we have one of the most famous comic books and television shows of all time. And without these men breaking away and deciding to do something different, we would never have The Walking Dead. And after that, it was like being born again. There's so much stuff out there now that we can't even get it all. There's so much. But Image Comics is still like one of the ultimate independent comic book companies out there, pushing writers and artists alike to grab the reins and just tell the stories that they want to, and they know that everybody else wants to read them and see them. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Why We Love Comics, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Maybe with Marvel, maybe with DC, who knows? But we will see you next time. Same bad time, same bad channel. Peace.